a very strong physical pull, almost like withdrawal. When you try to go no contact, you feel horrible, you feel bad, you feel selfish, you feel mean. Hey everyone, I hope everyone is doing good and taking good care of themselves. So today I'm going to talk about breaking the trauma bond and why survivors of narcissistic parents struggle to let go. And before I get going, I would request you all to like, share, subscribe the channel, hit the notification bell so you guys are updated whenever we put out a new content. So today we are going to talk about something that confuses and frustrates so many survivors, and that is why it is so hard to let go of narcissistic parents. You have been hurt, dismissed, manipulated, sometimes even abandoned, abused, hit, sweared at, and yet there's still a part of you that longs for their approval. I was there, but I have healed, I have recovered. And to tell you honestly, that part of you that longs for their approval, that pull, that emotional attachment, even in the face of abuse, that is called trauma bond. That is what trauma bond is. You're abused, you're abandoned, but still your heart yearns for their approval, yearns for their love. That pull, that emotional attachment, that is what trauma bond is. And if you have ever found yourself defending your narcissistic mother, going back to your narcissistic father, or feeling guilty for wanting distance from the narcissistic family, then you already know how powerful this bond can be. Yeah, it can be powerful than your relationship with your partner. It can be powerful than the relationship you know with your own child. And today we will break it down. We will look at the psychology, the science, the emotional trap, and most importantly, how to break free and get over and start fresh and move on in life. So let us understand what trauma bond is. A trauma bond is a strong emotional attachment to someone who consistently hurts you, ignores you, abandons you, traumatizes you, abuses you. Dr. Patrick Carnes, who wrote The Betrayal Bond, explains that trauma bond are formed through cycles of abuse and intermittent kindness. It's not constant cruelty. Yeah, it's this unpredictability. Today I'm hurt, but tomorrow I will be loved, tomorrow I will be seen. And when there is this alternating affection and abuse, all of this wires your brain to cling tighter instead of letting go of your abuser. Yeah, and in families with narcissistic parents, this looks like a mother who criticizes you harshly but then praises you when you achieve something, or it can be in forms of crumb. Ah, this is my son, he's so good, and that's it. You have forgotten, you're back to square one. My mama loves me. Yeah, your father neglects you but suddenly showers you with attention when you do what he wants. So, it creates confusion. This push and pull is what creates confusion. Yeah? And this confusion is the perfect breeding ground for dependency. And this is what trauma bonding is. Now, let's talk about what happens in the brain when you are trauma bonded to your narcissistic parent. What happens inside the brain? Every time your narcissistic parent gives you approval, your brain releases dopamine, the feel good chemical. But when they withdraw love, criticize you, or punish you, your brain releases, cortisol, the stress hormone. And this cycle of pleasure and pain creates the same neurochemical pattern we see in addiction. And again, I would like to quote Dr. Bessel van der Kolk in his book The Body Keeps the Score, describes how trauma wires the brain. It confuses danger with attachment. And in other words, your body begins to crave the very person who is the source of your pain. That's why trauma bond feels so unbreakable. It's not weakness, whereas in reality, it's neurobiology. At a chemical level, also things are happening, and that's why the pull is so strong. That's why it feels as if we are cemented to our abusive parent, yeah, because there is a chemical aspect to it. Now, there is an emotional dimension to trauma bond also. So, trauma bonds thrive in FOG, and that is fear, obligation, and guilt. Fear of what? Fear of rejection, abandonment, or being cut off from the family. O is for obligation, the belief that you owe your parents no matter what they have done. G is for guilt, the constant voice inside of you saying, maybe I'm the problem, maybe I'm selfish for wanting freedom. Yeah. So this is what FOG means. Yeah. And trauma bond thrives in FOG. Yeah. Fear, obligation, and guilt. Dr. Judith Herman in Trauma and Recovery explains that the greatest betrayal in trauma comes when the very person who is supposed to protect you becomes the source of harm. And yet, the child in you still clings to the hope that maybe one day they will change. That hope is what keeps you trapped. That hope is what glues you. That hope is what binds you and cements you to your narcissistic abusive parent or XYZ abusive partner. Now, how do you know if you are trauma bonded to your narcissistic parent? A lot of individuals, ask me what are the signs to look out for. How can we, assess, or what are the signs to look out for if I'm trauma bonded to my narcissistic parent? So here are some of the signs. You will feel intense guilt when you set boundaries. That's a sign of being trauma bonded to your narcissistic parent. You minimize their abuse, saying things like, they did their best, they were also abused, so they didn't know any better, so maybe they did bad with me, they abused me because of their difficult backstory. You defend them to others even when you know they are wrong. Yeah, you protect them, you become their advocate even though you know they are shitty and crappy and they are abusive, but you still protect them even though you know that they are wicked, they are wrong. You don't stand up with your spouse, you don't stand up with your children, you don't stand up with their victim, rather than you stand up with the abuser, your narcissistic parent. You confuse guilt or obligation with love. That's also there. It's a sign that you are trauma bonded to your narcissistic parent. You feel a very strong physical pull, almost like withdrawal, when you try to go no contact. You feel horrible, you feel bad, you feel selfish, you feel mean. And to tell you honestly, whatever the signs that I have mentioned, these signs are not of genuine love. This is not love. This is not what healthy love feels like. No, these are the signs of trauma bond. Now, how do we overcome such a bond? How do we overcome such a relationship? How do we overcome our trauma bonding with our narcissistic parent? How do we break free? So the first step is be patient. It's not going to happen in one day, 1 hour. It takes conscious effort and it takes a long time. The first step is to name it. Say the words. This is not love, this is trauma bonding. So when you name it, it interrupts the cycle of denial. The next thing that you can do is break the FOG. Write down how fear, obligation, and guilt show up in your life. Challenge each belief. Ask, is this true? Or was I conditioned to think this way? The other thing that you can do is establish boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters that protect your peace, so there's no harm. This might mean limiting contact, refusing invasive questions, or simply saying, I need space, I don't wish to talk about it. There's no harm. Boundaries are to protect you. Boundaries are to let you live with dignity. Boundaries are to keep your self-worth, self-esteem intact. So use it. The other thing that you can do is to reparent yourself. Dr. Pete Walker, in his work on complex PTSD, encourages inner child healing. Give yourself the love, validation, and protection your parents couldn't give, yeah, or provide. So just reparent yourself. Do everything that you were forbidden as a child. Give yourself that, and that's how the inner child heals. Once the inner child heals, the you that's carrying that inner child, you tend to evolve, you tend to grow, you tend to, become more successful, expand. You become a happy person once you are able to reparent that inner child. Yeah, once you reparent that inner child also grows into a healthy adult, and that growth is your growth. You also grow. Yeah, so you have to raise that inner child, you have to reparent the inner child, and that's it. You are going to grow, you are going to heal, you are going to prosper. The other thing that you can do is build safe connections. Dr. Bruce Perry, co-author of What Happened to You, emphasizes that healing happens in safe relationships. So surround yourself with people who affirm your worth instead of undermining it. So attract your tribe. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Don't surround yourself with shitty people. They'll keep triggering you, they'll keep pulling you down. Don't do that. Apart from that, what you can do is grieve what you never had. Dr. Pauline, in Ambiguous Loss, describes the grief of losing something that was never really there is very essential. Many survivors must mourn the parent they longed for, but they never received, and this is going to help you move on in life. I did grieve, about the things that I never had, and it helped me. I'm over. Now I'm not looking for a parent in every XYZ. No, I didn't get it, and it's okay. My story is different. That's it. I don't need any more parent. I am parenting my own self. I am my own parent. That's it. I have moved past that. And the last thing that you can do is to anchor yourself, anchor in freedom. Yeah, so freedom isn't just cutting ties, it's emotional independence. So when their approval no longer defines you, when guilt no longer dictates your choices, then you are truly free. So it's not about just going no contact, it's working on yourself, and that's it. Now, breaking a trauma bond with a narcissistic parent is one of the hardest things a survivor will ever do, but it is also the most liberating, because when you break the bond, you break the generational cycle. You stop repeating the same patterns in your relationship, your parenting, your life. And what this does is that it unmasks narcissism. You move from surviving to overcoming and thriving. And when you take back charge, when you take back control, you literally become the narcissist's nightmare. You don't have to do anything. You just have to take back the controls, take back the charge, and that's it. You don't have to hurt the narcissist. You don't have to argue, fight, or do anything. Just be you, and that's it. That's the antidote. Yeah, that is something that is going to um, mortify the narcissist. That is something that is going to hurt the narcissist. You cannot hurt a narcissist by argumenting with them or fighting with them or getting into legal issues with them. You can only fight with a narcissist by simply moving on and by making them feel that they are non-existent. That is the best way. to kill the narcissist with kindness. So yes, this was it. This is the reason why overcoming trauma bond is very difficult and painful, but it is not impossible. It is 100% possible, and you can overcome trauma bonding. Yeah, I did, and I'm sure you can as well. So yes, this was it. In case if you would like to add in something, you can always comment below. Till then, take care of yourself. Lots of love and blessings to all of you.